I was pretty much into cricket as a youngster, then the civil services happened. And then I realized that I'm a more creative person than the civil services allows. And the biggest compliment I got during my farewell, which will give an insight into this, is one of the senior officers saying that we couldn't do enough to keep Vivek in the civil services.
This is the first time that I'm telling this story.
Hello there, and welcome to Whips and Chains.
An individual can be sold innumerable times.
What are the whips that we flog ourselves with often?
I discovered cancer, I had breast cancer.
And what are the chains that bind us down?
फिर मैंने YouTube पे देखा कि फीमेल फिटिसाइड होता कैसे
Is something I want to explore in my show.
They're orphans.
It's okay. It's okay.
गर्दन निकलती है बाकी हिस्सा ऐसे ऐसे करके निकलता है यार इतना बड़ा पाप होता अपने गांव में
It's horrific.
Somebody passed me by and hit my bum.
He did have a personality disorder.
कई बार मैं सो ही नहीं सका
All the traffickers that I've seen, they are common people like you and me.
She said, Kanda tu dein, vata putar tu.
If you talk about human trafficking, it's $1 billion business.
There was a lot of violence, a lot of aggression.
बड़े बड़े पुल बना दोगे उनसे ह्यूमैनिटी तो नहीं बनने वाली
And welcome to Whips and Chains. Welcome to another episode of Whips and Chains, the space where we have difficult conversations that mostly talk about issues that other people and even us, sometimes we are very uncomfortable with. But today, I'm going to introduce you to someone who actually did the unthinkable. He quit the Indian Administrative Service, an enviable post for anyone, particularly in India, and made a whole new life for himself as a motivational speaker, an author, a leadership trainer, and so many more hats that he wears. So, welcome, Vivek. It's lovely to have you on my show, and I'm really excited to hear all the wonderful new wisdom you have to give us.
I don't know about wisdom, but thank you for inviting me, Nivedita. And it's a pleasure to be on Whips and Chains.
Thank you so much. So, let's start with this question how did your sense of knowing that I'm a little different than everyone else, when did that start actually for you? Because it couldn't have happened overnight.
Yeah, so everyone is different from the other, but we don't realize it, as you said. I was pretty much into cricket as a youngster, then the civil services happened. And then I realized that I'm a more creative person than the civil services allows. And the biggest compliment I got during my farewell, which will give an insight into this, is one of the senior officers saying that we couldn't do enough to keep Vivek in the civil services. Now, that's a great admission from the civil services, although even two people said it. But I realized that that's what really made me feel a little too much limited in my career. And now was the time to flower. This is the era to do what you really want to do. In earlier times, we couldn't have done this. We didn't have podcasts either.
Right.
So I think I quit at the right time. I felt that I'm different, as you said. I was a speaker. I didn't do enough speaking in service. You can't take the chutti from chief secretary every week, right? So he would say, "Ka kar rahe ho, kaam karo." So once in 3 months was not enough. So then I had 2 TEDx talks. Then now I have 10. So I do a lot of traveling and I speak.
Yes. So, in your life, as it evolved, you must have, dealt with some very difficult sort of situations as a civil servant and then as, when you transitioned. So do you feel that, the civil service sort of gives you a sort of cocoon that normal life doesn't give you?
Yeah, it gives a cocoon for sure. And there are difficult situations within that cocoon because there are other kinds of forces there.
Right.
Politicians
Yeah.
and rivals and
Yeah.
colleagues and others
Yeah.
and the public. And then there's family to balance, and that's important. So I think everyone goes through that in any profession. I also did. And barring 1 or 2 hiccups, it was a pretty smooth ride. But otherwise, and I lost my parents fairly early. I was only in my 20s.
Oh.
And they died early, both of them one by one. My father was an IPS officer, and he died in service at the age of 50. He had an ailment, yeah. And my mother died 5 years after that. She was also 50 at that time. So they had died early, but then uh, I had to become strong. And my sisters, they're twins. I was married immediately after my father passed away, about 2 years after that. So life happened, and I think it gave me that cocoon of the civil services actually gave me a little bit of comfort and shelter for the early years. So I joined the Haryana Civil Service, got promoted to the IAS later. So that 24 years which happened, it happened rather comfortably and rather well. But then, as you said, when I quit, then it became a different life. And I had the confidence to quit, which was important. Because as you hinted, or I will mention, people said, but a bold decision, it's.
Mm.
But what they meant was it's a very stupid decision.
Yes.
So they couldn't say that on
Yes.
Facebook, etc. Bold,
Ah.
bold, 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 bold. So I was like, let's see. But now, after 6 years, people actually tell me, Vivek, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest feeling. But then ultimately answerable to yourself, not to
That's
anyone
right.
else.
That's right. I think, I'm also the daughter of bureaucrats. So I
Yes.
understand that bureaucrats have to function within a certain limitation, right? But, outside that lens of bureaucracy, the world can appear like a ruthless place.
Yes.
So those that are calling you bold because you are comfortable with that ruthlessness.
I
you
think
know?
so. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that happens when people retire, of course, I resigned or took voluntary retirement at
Right,
49.
Right.
Now, people who retire, one of them said, we are thrown off a cliff
That's right.
because the next day you are an X whatever,
Yes.
which is, it's all in the mind actually.
Yeah.
There are people who retire who are still revered and respected and looked up
Right,
to.
right.
And there are others who were not very pleasant in their service, so people don't even talk to them now.
Right.
So retirement is a reality.
Yeah.
But I think I'll give you an example to substantiate what you are saying.
Mm.
So there's an officer who retired. He said, Vivek, now I have to drive my own car and I can't park it. And my parking skills, my driving
Yeah.
skills have waned over the years.
Yeah.
And I keep doing these scratches and tuckers and the parking wala fights with me. What do I do? I said, sir, please spend 12 to 15,000. That's the
Yeah.
driver salary in Chandigarh, I guess, where I
Ah.
live.
Ah.
On the driver. He will be your
Give
odd
him a
jobs
good
man.
life, yeah.
You will still feel like a sahab.
Yeah.
And that's the
Right.
only thing you need to
Yeah.
continue your reasonable,
Huh.
comfort level.
Huh.
And spend that money from your pension or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. So that's the only thing I can say. But then you have to be mentally ready.
Right.
Mentally,
Right.
even I took 4 years to decide.
Yeah.
It's not like I decided let's resign and go. I took
Mm.
4 years in preparing myself. So that's how I did it.
But purane zamane mein, there used to be this sort of real pressure from parents of your parents and that generation, that IAS, civil service. I mean, it was like a big aspirational thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even for my dad, there was a civil servant very early in his family. I don't know how many 100 years ago. And then after that, he was the next. Otherwise, it was a business family. So there was this huge pressure on him that if I get through, this is what my father would want. So now I think that idea, do you feel it has changed a bit and it's not that aspirational? Or how do people view it anymore?
I would say that even more people are aspiring now, but the pressure on aspirants has increased. And when your father became a civil servant, things were actually a little more zoned out and a little more spaced out.
Spaced out, yeah.
And there were not that many expectations.
That's right.
And we had to basically, I don't think people were under that kind of pressure as you,
They are
I,
now,
and others,
yes.
millennials are.
Yes.
So they are actually screaming within, and that overthinking, that whole pressure of being successful, and people staring at them. Why didn't you get into IIT? Why didn't you get into IIM? What about the IAS? All these I's, the Indian cricket team, I. So all the Indian whatever,
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yes.
And then I play with the word and I say the I is actually your ego.
I was just going to say that, in fact.
The
The I is the ego,
So all
yes.
these
Ego
IIT,
development things.
exactly,
Yeah.
IIT, IIM, IAS,
yes.
and the III within. So you have to balance the two
Absolutely.
and understand that everybody is not going to get into these. What is the ratio? It's 0.1% roughly. And that 0. What about the rest of the 99.99%?
Yeah.
So we have to be comfortable with that also.
I think at a certain level also we have to be comfortable with the idea of contentment without reaching these peaks.
Uh-huh.
You know, like we have this thing that you have to reach the peak or the
Yeah.
pinnacle of something to be credible.
Yeah.
Not true at all.
No, not true at all. In
You
fact,
know?
I have the 7 C's. And I'll just quickly rattle them off because
Yeah.
I keep speaking about
Yeah,
them
yeah,
to the youngsters.
absolutely.
So one is courage, calmness, cheerfulness, compassion, creativity. Then there's contentment. And you mentioned contentment. So contentment is something which comes from gratitude,
Absolutely.
appreciation for what you have.
Totally.
And you're going to be contented. People think that being contented is being, stationary. It's not like that. You can be ambitious and contented at the same time. So I play cricket. If I play cricket, I have 10 centuries. I'm happy with my 10 century, but I want 20, right? So I can be grateful, contented, yet want to be...
Want a goal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can.
So why do we have to... Some people think that if I'm frustrated with my present position and not contented, then I'll do better. I don't think it works that way. That
Yeah.
passion or that anger or that frustration will only propel you a certain way forward. But if
Right.
you have a calmness and contentment and gratitude and gratefulness within,
Yeah.
then you will do much better in life. I
Yeah.
feel so.
That's absolutely true. So, what do you think are because you go around to IITs and IIMs and you give talks and interact with the younger people. What are their top concerns these days that are overarching and very different from, say, 20 to 30 years ago?
Very good question. It's very relevant. I extremely strongly feel that the mind is overworked. They don't sleep enough. They are on social media for at least 3 to 4 hours per day. And these reels are making us reel. So I wrote a piece. India is reeling
Yes,
under reels.
I read that.
And it's actually true. And
Yeah.
even you or I,
Yeah.
uh,
We will be a reel.
more sensible people, I guess, will be reeling.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to stop.
Yeah.
And for a 20-year-old, I went to IIT Madras, and there were 4 suicides last year. Unfortunately, I was one of the speakers. And when I went there, they were saying that, sir, we don't sleep enough. We sleep only 4 hours, 5 hours. We work hard. We watch reels, and we overthink, and that is our problem. One of them was very candid. And if you are in the top institute of the country, it is ranked number 1, NIRF, and you are unhappy, that means there's something beyond which you have to find. And the youngsters of today who are under so much pressure of social media and expectation, they have to understand what is happiness and what is success. So my book, the third one, is called Finding Success Within. So we find that success within. Someone like Dr. Manmohan Singh, former Prime Minister, so calm, so humble,
Absolutely.
so cool. I met him and he came to inaugurate the Chandigarh IT Park. And I'm like, I thought Prime Minister, I was very shy and nervous, and I was standing in the line because of Director IT. So I was
Right.
supposed to be there. Shook hands, looked at me. The person was introducing me, saying good things, the senior,
Yes.
Mr. Lalit Sharma was the advisor. And Dr. Manmohan Singh looked at me, listened humbly, calmly, and I was so impressed, inspired. So my point is that greatness and success come with calmness, not with overthinking, overambition, only to a point. You have to concentrate on what you're doing. If your brain is overworked, mind is overworked, you can't concentrate. Meditation is another matter which we'll come to.
Yes.
So all these things need to be a part of our life early, especially in 2024. 20, 30 years ago, as you said, it was not that exasperating.
Yeah, and I think meditation, wellness, all these things were good to do's. They weren't have to do's. Now it's become a necessary life skill.
Indispensable.
Absolutely, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, where are they going wrong? I think this sense of this need for instant gratification
Yes.
that also comes through social media and
Yes.
reels, like you said,
Yes.
is a very big disease.
So I was listening to a talk by a saint, and he's Swami Smarnanandji of YSS, which I follow. Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of the autobiography of a yogi.
Right,
And Swami
right.
Smarnanandji said, when I was a child, he says, my mother used to make idli and she would ferment it for maybe 2 days or one day, I don't know. And today you get instant idli mix, instant gratification. Everything, credit card is there, Google Pay is there, this is there, that is there, and you don't know how much you're spending or whatever. So everything is available. Now, this millennial generation, do they ever think that this pizza is more expensive than the other? An upper middle class family will not even think about it.
Yes.
A well off family will not even think. So they have everything on a platter and they click a button and it comes. So it's like genie. So I think a little bit of struggle, a little bit of toughness, control on your desires. Here, every desire is being satiated.
And a little bit of not having and be okay with not having.
Exactly.
I remember when my kids were growing up, I taught them that, you may want something, but you may not always get it.
Yes.
And that's fine.
Yes.
Learn to be okay with not getting that thing.
Comfort zones are
Yeah.
so comfortable. Being out of that comfort zone once in a while, not that we shouldn't compare generations. So traveling by bus was something which was new to me. When my father was in the IPS, we would go by car. But then I started because I was in college.
Yes.
I had to go to Kurukshetra from Chandigarh. I was in NIT, going 2 hours in a bus, catching a bus, coming back. And then I learned the ropes.
Yeah.
So now bus travel, very few kids would go and Uber
Yes.
comes in a minute. And
Yes.
so I think, but meditation is indispensable. It's not an option. So I have this share which I use everywhere and it's overused by me now, but I must use it here because
Absolutely.
it's applicable.
Yes.
And it's not mine. It came on WhatsApp. It is फितूर होता है हर दौर में जुदा जुदा पहले खिलौने फिर इश्क फिर पैसा फिर खुदा खुदा. So everybody goes through that linear equation.
Yeah.
They want toys, then they have crushes, then they
Yes.
have career
Right.
compulsions,
Yeah.
and God is waiting till the end, and sometimes we
Right.
pop up without even thinking about him.
That's true.
So God has to come in now.
Yeah. I remember you also had this story about, I think someone in IIT or IIM, they died or they were suicidal because they didn't have a girlfriend. And you were quite
Yeah.
surprised that after all of this, you are.
What is the end? What is the end to our this girlfriend thing or having a car or not that you equate a girlfriend with a car,
Oh.
but all your ambitions.
Yeah.
A youngster would want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a car, a house, a great salary one day,
Yeah.
getting married to
No,
a,
one day, nahi, they want it now.
They want it now.
Yeah.
They want it now. So I think they are overthinking and comparing. Comparison is what is pulling them down.
Yeah.
And if someone is better looking than you and you're feeling low, comparing yourself with Instagram, Instagram is a feel-good place.
Yes.
Nobody puts their bad pictures over there. Everybody puts their great pictures,
Great
and that too
pictures.
filtered.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I'm very proud to say I've never put a filtered picture over there.
No, have I? But now
I'm
that's
sure you
making
haven't.
me think that, okay, maybe.
No, but the point is that comparison is going to kill us. And where is the end to desire? You said just now, you're in IIT, you're in IIM, that girlfriend is not yours. I gave that story earlier. And now the quest for something better. So there's a saying that a 16-year-old admires people with luxury. And someone who's mature, I wouldn't say what age, admires people with inner peace. So you have to stop running after those material goals at some point and realize they're not going to give you happiness and find that inner balance and calmness and peace and happiness.
Yeah. But there's also this other criticism that millennials and young people now have, that past paradigms were very toxic. That's his new favorite word, right? Toxic. So what do you say about that? Was everything toxic?
No.
No, na?
No.
No,
They were,
not at all.
There was toxicity in terms of, let's talk about India, the patriarchal society, and the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law conflict, which was always there. Saas bhi kabhi bahuti types. and that was also now 30 years ago or something when this show
Absolutely.
came, or maybe 25 years ago.
Yes.
the point is that
And even the Bahu has done very well after that, right?
I'm sure the Bahu has done
No,
very well.
exactly.
Exactly. So the point, yeah. So the point is that we are in an era where we are a little more. In fact, the toxicity has increased. And
Why do you say that?
I say that because the forces are so many. The kind of pressure on us has increased. So I think we're a little bitter compared to before. Not maybe we sitting in a podcast calmly talking about happiness and peace, but people out there. So the neighbor has a bigger TV was always an issue,
Huh.
and
Nahi, but ye jo expectations that come up, particularly when we're talking about things like misogyny.
yeah,
I personally feel that, when I was young, there were completely different standards for men and women. That was a given. And you were definitely fighting against it for your rights, or say, as a woman. Now, what has happened is that women think that they are equal to men completely. It's pretty much out in the open. I can do whatever another guy can do. But the standards for me at home are still the same as before.
right.
It's not like the men have changed and the men are taking more of, an ownership, or, the food that's cooked at home and everything that's happening at home is still all the woman's domain. So these young women who are now wanting to straddle very high professional pressure still have to go back and make sure the parathas are cooked and all of that is done, right? Or else, then everyone's ordering out. If they're all ordering out and the family is growing on, the junk food and,
No,
this
that's
thing,
terrible.
that's another horror story waiting to unveil, right? And so then there is, you go to these doctors and the big pharma. And so it's a very vicious kind of cycle of, expectations and unmet needs.
That's very well said. Absolutely, I agree totally. But then comparing eras is very difficult. We were talking on the point that it was toxic earlier. I
Right.
think it's toxic now as well. But there is happiness now and there was happiness then. Now, relationships were more permanent. There was permanence.
Yes.
And it is also because a woman in India would not really speak her mind. And that is why she suffered in silence at times.
And that's why whips and chains,
And
I
that's why
called
whips
it.
and chains. I know. So she would suffer in silence.
Right.
And now that liberalization has taken
Right,
place,
right.
and she speaks her mind, and the parents will support the daughter in a conflict
Right,
situation or a
right.
disagreement,
Huh.
and it never used to happen.
Huh.
They would probably say, "Go back over there," but now they say, "You come," and we'll fight them.
Yeah.
So it's a little. I wouldn't say that was great or this is bad.
Yeah.
There are benefits both ways.
Hmm.
The best part is that the woman of India has really come into her own. I've seen the police woman. I really feel good about the fact that these police ladies on the road, in the police stations, are an example of confidence, liberation. And I don't think, barring a few incidents, that anyone is taking them lightly. Maybe some colleagues are like that. It happens everywhere. Even in
Yeah,
the army, it
yeah,
happens.
yeah.
But by and large, this generation of women has come into their own.
Hmm.
And I think is leading happier lives. The problem of expectation, which we talked about, the pressure, the social media, the comparison, that is there. But earlier times, they were confined to their cocoons, very small cocoons.
Hmm.
Now they're not there.
So tell me, when you stopped being a sahab and you became a non-sahab.
I'm still
Okay.
a sahab.
No, no.
A different sahab.
No, so
That's
how
why you
did-
called me.
Okay. So how did your wife and your daughters,
Hmm.
did they treat you differently?
No, why will they treat me differently? I think I treated them differently because I was spending more time with them.
Okay.
I have two daughters, and
Yes.
one of them is in an NGO. The other is doing a course or internship in arts-based therapy.
Okay.
And they're in very different fields. So they are very cool kids, I would say. And my wife runs a school for toddlers, a preschool.
Oh, excellent.
So she is the sort who never had that hang up. In fact, she was...
She never had the bureaucrat's wife.
Never. I was the deputy commissioner and she hardly ever bothered.
Huh.
I mean, she's like, it's the same.
Huh.
And
So nothing changed for
nothing
them.
changed for her or
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
I was never the sort to have too many perks from the office at home anyway.
Hmm.
Though when I was growing up, my dad would have a couple of orderlies at home. He was in the
Right,
police. In the
right.
IAS, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have them.
Yeah.
Even when I was DC, I didn't get them home. So I think, I mean, this is sounding very pompous, but I think I was very grounded.
So
And
there was a reality check.
there was a reality check. Plus, I took a 2 year sabbatical about 7 years before I resigned, or 8 years. And I carried my laptop everywhere and worked for a consulting firm. And government gave me permission. And I realized what it is to be outside the government. I prepared myself. And I think it's much better than I thought it would be now. I still get. I think I'm more popular now, I would say.
Yes, of course. And so, I mean, you are one person who realized the perks of being outside the government. I realized the perks of not being in the government when I was very young. And I would say, like, oh my God, this is all bizarre.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
all so bizarre.
So confined.
Yeah, and it's very confined and limited. And actually, the time that you really need the maximum support is post retirement. You're not going to get it in any case. तो फायदा क्या है अभी से आदत डाल ले.
Exactly. You should be able to do your own thing.
Exactly.
And today is the
Right.
era when you can.
When you can.
You
Right.
can order a cab, you can
Yes.
order Zomato, you
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful ad which we can talk about. So these two gentlemen are sitting, they look like retired people. And they've just ordered lasagna. And the guy is like, he's a little desi.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, lasagna is okay. And then they're looking a little grim. Then saying, जीरा राइस भी कर लें हाँ और साथ में दाल चावल हाँ जो भी है so then they're happy. So the coolness of that era, of this era,
Yeah.
combined with that groundedness of the previous era is
Yeah.
giving people of our generation and much older people that confidence, that ability to be on their own. They don't
Yeah.
need the perks of office anymore.
Yeah. So, this whole question, I think, of, spirituality married with practicality and life skills
Mhm.
is, I think, a skill set that everyone now needs front and center,
Yeah.
right? Because that is where you get your seniority from, really. You're not getting it from an institution
Very
or a
well
position.
said. I agree.
Yeah.
I think we have to win the inner battle. And you realize this much later. So my wife read the autobiography of a yogi. So Nina tells me that you should read it. I took 1 year to read it. Oh, I'm busy, excuses. And then I took 1 year. But now I read one page every day for the rest of my life. I've read about 6 or 7 times. And I realize, and it's a global bestseller, but the thing is that I started practicing meditation techniques which were given later in the lessons. And those techniques told me that, those meditation experiences told me that this is what is giving me joy, even during my work, during my day. So when I'm able to let go, that's the way forward. And then that meditation really carries, you carry the peace. Of course, you're human. You still lose your cool at times. You still feel exasperated in the traffic or whatever. But you are better off with the spiritual backing. And ultimately, what is the goal of life? Let us bring it out in your show. Why not?
Yeah.
So all those people watching, what is the goal of your life? The goal of your life is happiness, peace, but it's also to connect with the Lord, with God, with the divine, with the divinity within you. The soul has to connect to the ultimate divinity.
Absolutely.
And meditation is the only way you can do that. So the moment you realize it, please start practicing, everyone. And that is when your journey really is fulfilled.
So, as a speaker, as an author, as a person, who gets called to give advice and who this thing, what are the factors that now unite people, you think?
I think, unfortunately, they're still running after money, power, and fame, and that they are united in that. I mean, everybody's running after these, and they all. I mean, you're lusting after things or people. You are materially minded, and you don't really realize it. And snapping at people or impatient. I'm not saying everybody is. I mean, we're all human. So I feel that even if you give 20% of your time to thinking a little deeply about your life, or 10% of your time about the bigger picture, why am I doing what I'm doing? A human body is given to us. An animal cannot meditate.
Right.
The animal has to look for food or be surviving, just survival.
No, it's such a huge opportunity. I mean, the fact that we are rational beings and we are breathing and living and thinking and engaging like this.
Trying to be rational beings.
Trying to be rational.
And we're talking very rationally on this podcast. Maybe outside
We are
there
all
we may not.
crazy. Yeah.
But I think we improve. We
Yeah.
improve.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we all improve.
Yeah.
So I think that human body and mind is given to us to actually realize the gifts that we have, the Creator, and that song "Kaun Chitrakar Hai,"
Yes.
the old one.
Ah,
So I was listening to it in the radio. That's why I was reminded now.
ah.
Who is the creator? We have to connect. And the Lord is watching us even in 2024. We, with all our desires and busy times, and often quote Socrates, and I've quoted him before, beware the barrenness of a busy life. And this barren life is not for why we're here. We're here to realize that the Creator is waiting for us to think of Him or her, Divine Mother. So then you meditate deeply and find. And why not be successful in your career and yet balance your life? So the monks are those who gave up, or nuns gave up society for whole time practice. We as householders are supposed to balance our lives and do the best we can to be spiritual.
Yeah.
That's it.
But do you find also that, you would have given up one thing to get into another, this private speaking space and writing space? But also, I'm sure you have your own frustrations, right? So, just as no matter what path you choose, really, whatever the life plan is, there are frustrations inherent in any choice you make. And how to be, no matter what you are, is the spiritual path, really,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Exactly. So the bumps, the speed breakers, the roadblocks are everywhere. And human lives are imperfect. We cannot have a quest for perfection and predictability. Everything is unpredictable.
Yeah.
So whether I'm a motivational speaker or I'm a chartered accountant or I'm a lawyer, I will have setbacks.
Yeah.
And as a motivational speaker, you have to learn to handle them better, because if you're not a role model, then what are you speaking about?
That's true.
So you have to win the inner battle again. I have them, but I learn to handle them better. So the prayer to the Lord has to be, and this I've read in the scriptures or in my lessons, make my shoulders stronger to handle the burdens. Don't
Yes.
lessen my burdens, but make me
That's true.
stronger. So if I'm stronger, then the same burdens, obstacles,
Feels
problems,
less.
they feel less so.
Yeah.
And someone said something to you in 2019 and you're
You're
still
still
thinking
holding
over
it.
it. What is the point?
Yeah.
So the Bible says, forgive someone 70 times 7. And forgiveness is a huge plus.
Right.
You sleep better, you are calmer, and you forget. Forgive and
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah.
We can't do it very
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
So I would say that my negativities or my frustrations or my problems that you refer to might still be the same in some ways or the other, but my response has improved.
Yeah.
And actually they've also reduced. I must admit. They've
Yeah.
reduced. The difficulties of life in my life have reduced.
So, as a dad, what is the kind of advice you give your daughters on how to negotiate the world?
So, I'm learning from them as well. I will give them advice and I will tell you. But firstly, what I've learned from them is even more important. So, this generation is more empathetic towards the society than I was, or maybe you were. Because we were my college, my job, my career, my family. We didn't know that we could also give.
Give back.
And although our parents were very compassionate, but we didn't even have the resources. So we had limited salaries they had. And
Yeah.
so now, whatever these kids earn, they donate. They spend time. And both my girls are in socially conscious jobs.
Yeah.
So I think I've learned from them that empathy part and the ability to think of others, animals as well. They're majorly into animals and pets. And by the way, while coming into this place, I saw some little doggies and I took a video and put a picture of them before coming to the studio.
Yeah.
So I would say that I have given them in turn, me and Nina, we give them that advice or that feeling that you have to remain mentally strong. You have to be aware that life is going to have about turns and twists, and be strong and be balanced, and also give family due time. So we miss the bus. I miss the bus in spending time with my kids as much as I should have,
Yes. Yeah.
because I was in a career service.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a myth also. You could have spent more time than you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just thought differently then,
Yeah.
right?
So I would tell them that spend more time with the family and kids.
Yeah.
Don't be so career oriented. Anyway, we're now in a post COVID era where work from home is there,
Right.
and so many things can be done from anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
people are working in complex problems on the Goa beach right now.
Yes.
And he's on the beach and he's like, solving complex technology problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how he gets distracted or not, but the thing is that it works.
Yeah.
And Google and IBM give you creative thinking time per week. Though it doesn't work very well because, in my view, you come up with creative thoughts in the traffic
Randomly.
or
yeah.
randomly.
Yeah. Very
But
randomly.
like if you're going to think for 2 hours, you may not come up with anything. You might be thinking of coffee at that time. So I think what I want to say is that my daughters have given me a lot, and my wife also we've learned from them, but we've given them that calmness, balance, the bigger picture, that kind of thing.
So, as you know, we are dealing in a time where there are three different generations of people who are in the workforce,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and there is this whole perception that post 40 or post 50, you're pretty redundant. The younger generation looks like that. I mean, they kind of look at the older ones like that. What is the stance the older people say post 40? What should they be getting sort of more and more aware about or more and more ready for, you feel?
So let's put in three generations, you said. So let's talk about the 20s, 30s, the 40s, 50s, and the 60s, 70s.
Yes.
Right?
Ah.
So we are still in 40s, 50s. right?
Yes.
So
Just to make sure.
So the thing is, let's start from the top.
Yeah.
The 60s, 70s are 70s, 80s, 90s even.
Yeah.
I met General Dipinder Singh, he's
Yes.
93.
Yes.
He's coming on my show, the Good Vibe Show.
Yeah.
Now, these people deserve our time and respect. All they want is to have someone to talk to.
To talk to.
Yeah, because they are not working, or if they're working minimally, whatever is possible. I know somebody.
Consulting.
Yeah, I know someone called Colonel D.S. Chima. He goes and speaks. He's 84, but he's rare. And General VP Malik, former army chief, he's so alert and so graceful at 80 something. Now, the 60s, 70s, 80s deserve our respect and time. The 40s, 50s are the pivotal generation, which should be connected with both sets of generation and should be the bridge between them.
That's the responsibility also that we shoulder, right?
Exactly. And sometimes we were talking about the youngsters overthinking and IITians, etc. The parents are responsible. So the 40s, 50s have to play that role of calming and being the balm, but they're not. They have their own aspirations and they are restless.
Yeah.
And we are in that.
Yeah.
So if we are restless, then the millennials are going to be super restless.
Yeah.
And they look at their mama.
Yeah.
And if we are, and I must talk about parents who argue a lot in front of their younger ones, or who are losing their cool, or who are swearing or shouting in traffic or wherever. So I think being a role model is very important. We can't be perfect, but we can try to be role models, because the younger generation will
monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. They're not going to listen to us. They're going to emulate us.
Absolutely.
They're going to watch us, be like us, try to be like us. And the 20s, 30s, millennials, I would say the 40s, 50s have to be more sorted, more balanced, more calm, seeing the bigger picture. And the 20s, 30s have to realize, as we said earlier, that everybody cannot reach the pinnacle. And we have to be content and happy where we are.
Yeah. And also, I don't know whether you have experienced this, that even when one is pursuing a sense of calm or inner, spirituality or practice, we tend to think that, the outside world will change as we change. And that does not happen. So we have to develop inner resources enough to tide over that which we perceive ought to change, because otherwise those kind of people who bring in their expectations of the world into their practice become really obnoxious, don't you think?
Yeah. I think this conversation is getting very oceanic, deep now. We're getting into really deep realms, but not deep waters.
Yes.
So I think this is a great point you make. See, ultimately, my inner makeup will reflect in my outer life. If I am a calmer person, then I've sorted out many of my problems. I'm not that restless, uneasy kind of person, bitter. In my talks with the youth, I often use the word dukhi atma nahi banna hai. Don't be rondu types, right? So don't be crybabies.
Yes.
So that cheerfulness, calmness, it's very easy to say. But I've seen people who are able to manage that. And they are able to come up with a quip or a quote or something funny,
Yeah.
even in the most dire situations.
A sense of humor, I think, is a great
It's
thing
a
to have.
great plus point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we have to really conquer our inner demons, our fears, worries. If we are overthinking, then we are responsible for them. And being more mature and in life, like Rekha, when she turned 60, I quoted this before. She said, they said, what is the secret of your youthfulness and beauty? She said, lots of water and inner peace. Now that inner peace is not an easy matter. Lots of water is
Yeah.
still manageable. So inner peace
True,
is not easy,
true.
but
Yeah.
at least she's trying. At least
Yeah.
we have to try.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. The inner environment will be reflected outside. We will be better people to be with. People who have goodwill are those who are good listeners, who are calmer, who are cheerful, who are humorous. And as a speaker, we are on TV, we are on YouTube,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have podcasts. We can't afford to be grumpy.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be bitter because it reflects.
Yeah.
What we don't say is more important than
Then
what we say. The vibe is more important. We have a vibe right now,
Right.
which is positive, which is
Yeah.
creative, which is
Uplifting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very much more fulfilling to be
Yeah.
like that.
So, what are your personal whips and chains, if you had to say?
So my personal whips and chains, everyone has them. And everyone is, there's this book by Gurcharan Das, India Unbound.
Yes.
So India, I don't know, but to unbind yourself is very important. And your own whips and chains are created by your self-doubts, your inhibitions. So I used to think a lot about what people think about me. Growing up, I was a cricketer and I would have done much better and maybe I would have become a cricketer for India, but I couldn't because I was overthinking about my failure. What is my coach thinking? What are my parents thinking? Not making enough runs. You can't do that. So my whips and chains have been those that consciousness of others thinking, even in service. So I would not talk to certain people in public because so and so is watching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't come to your podcast at that time. You wouldn't have had a podcast at that time, but now is the era.
Right.
But now I think I've unfettered myself a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I don't give a damn. I do, but it's much better, much cooler. One of the things I don't do is dance.
Oh, okay.
But at a wedding recently,
You did.
I did because somebody taught me a few steps. I can't dance for nuts. I can sing a bit, but I was able to let
You
my
allowed yourself to be vulnerable.
and everybody's watching. I'm
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
And what else? I mean, there's so many things which I
So
don't do.
letting go of your inhibitions has happened a lot after you reinvented yourself. And
Even before I had started, but now it has really happened. And I have a good time. I travel a lot. I think I travel more than I should. But it's fun. I engage with the youth. I have quirky pictures with them. And somebody comes to me, selfie, and supposing it's a young lady. And then she wants a selfie after the thing. And so I'll think, but then I'll say, let's go ahead. Earlier times I would have said, no, don't post this. Don't post that.
No, thank you very much, Vivek. It's been really a delight having you. And I think we've shared so much. And the great thing about you is this spiritual, practical wala conversation. Na? It's really been very therapeutic for me to have
No, but
that.
you are probably the best person to have interacted with me on this. And I have had many podcasts, but this has been great fun. The vibe is amazing. And you have a very similar vibe to mine, I must say.
Yes.
And also, we'll end with a quote. I mean, I would like to end with Paramahansa Yogananda. He says, be calmly active and actively calm. And we talked about it.
Yes.
I think that calmness is within you as well.
Thank you so much. That's a lovely
Thank you.
compliment to
Thank
end the
you.
show with.
Thank you.
Thanks.